Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and today we're going to work on a generic bait casting reel that kind of sort of looks like an ambassador, but it's not. This is a Orient Homa, H-O-M-A, and it doesn't have any additional information, some fancy things like XW50 and the like, but it's got to pick this one up at an auction, so I figured, well, what the heck, we can take a look at it and show you how to service a reel. We'll point out some of the techniques that are consistent with all fishing reels regardless of the manufacturer, and hopefully we'll be able to get this one apart, service it, and keep it fishing again. So we're going to start by removing the exterior pieces. As we do, I'm going to encourage you to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. If you have, thank you. It helps to support the channel and keep the viewership relevant, and I appreciate all of that. Well, the first thing I noticed is that the nut cap is kind of a little bit sloppy. That's all right. There must be a clip under there. Yeah, there's a C-clip under here. It was catching. So I'm going to take the nut cap off, and then you want to remove that C-clip, and be careful when you do remove the C-clip because it may shoot. Most of the time you can push that out with finger pressure. If you can't, don't be afraid to use a little screwdriver, a mini screwdriver or whatever. But whatever you do, don't lose that little C-clip. It's important. It holds the gear shaft on. And if you do lose that, well, it's going to become problematic. Well, we have the handle, and then underneath the handle we have a tension washer. And then we have this adjuster, star adjuster, which is going to help you apply the drag pressure. So a good point when you're working on a reel that you're not familiar with, and I'm not familiar with this one, take pictures along the way. Now I'm doing that with a video, but the pictures will be invaluable if you take a misstep somewhere along the line and try to find a way to correct it. Well, we're missing one of the screws down here. That doesn't appear to affect the performance, but just duly noted. These are usually held in by little rubber circle washers. Sometimes they're not, and sometimes they're prone to fall off if the washer fell off. Well, we're going to see if we can take the side plate off now. It appears that we can't, and we probably have to remove these too. So that's next. Doesn't make sense though. Oh, there we go. We're all right. We're going to take that off. All right, let's take a look at your spool. There's no bearing in this side, which is interesting because the reel has 9-ball bearings, and there's no bearing over here. So there's nothing really to service on the spool. There is a bearing in the back. There's an idler gear with 2 gears on it. One is driven by the spool. The other is driving the worm gear. And all you need to do here, you don't, if it was kind of dirty, well, we can take this off anyway. There's 3 screws in the side plate here. That's going to allow you to take the side plate off and to clean up underneath. I did see a little debris in there, so we'll go ahead and take that off. These frames should stand separate from the caps, so no real need to worry too much about that. I'm laying these screws on the table as I do this because I want to make sure that those screws are the same size. If they're not, you want to identify where the longer or the shorter screw came from, and that will enable you to do that. All right, you should be able to pull that off. And as I mentioned, there's not much going on here. There did appear to be a little bit of dirt here. So we're just going to, there's just a little bit of overflow of some old oil. I'm going to use a cotton swab to clean that up. Then we're going to oil that bearing, and that's all you need to do on that side plate service. So we're just going to put it right back on, and we'll move on to the next steps. When you put it back on, you need to merge that worm gear. So if you're having trouble with the case not fitting properly, just go ahead and do what I did there. Just clean and move that idler gear just a little bit, and that'll help you put it on. Well, this one's missing a badge. I don't know what the badge was. It goes right here. So we're just going to call this a generic one. And if you are wondering about generics, well, they've been around forever. We've been doing some vintage reels where folks are learning that a lot of reels that we did were marketed under different brands. And this could quite be the case here as well. So we'll just go put those screws back in. I see one ball bearing, it says 9. Wonder where they're hiding the rest of them. Alright, we're going to just put a little bit of grease onto the shaft where it goes into the bearing. You do not need to put grease onto the Teflon piece. Teflon by its nature is self-lubricating. This reel has 2 brakes. Make sure that you put them in. And again, no spool bearings here. I'll guess that 2 of the bearings may be in the handles. Maybe even 4 bearings will be in the handles. So we're just going to grab the oil. And we'll just put a squirt of oil into both of the handle knobs. And if that's helpful, that's wonderful. Alright, we're going to set that aside for a moment. We're going to open up the case. So this would be a good time to start taking pictures to remind you of where the pieces and parts go should you open this up and forget as you do your cleaning and the like. So one of the things I believe with this reel is that this lever has to come off. There's a series of reels out there that have a spring and a trip mechanism inside of it, and thinking that this is one of those. So we'll take it off as a precaution. It may not need to come off, but I think doing so here may be an answer later. We'll have to see. All right, there's the screw and the lever. They're all going into my parts tray. That's where all my pieces and parts go. And we have 2 more screws to take off here, and then you can take a picture and see how this reel is. Still curious. I've only found 1 ball bearing visually. I don't know where you can put 9 ball bearings in this side of the reel. Even if I account for the handle and say that there's 2 in there, or even 4 in there, I still got to find, I don't know, 3, 4 more ball bearings. The reel certainly didn't seem like it was loaded with ball bearings when you went to crank it. All right, let's see what we got underneath here then. Actually says 9 plus 1, counting the anti-reverse clutch, so that makes 10. The 2 are off. We've got this little bump here for that free spool release. So I want to just kind of hold on it while I take that off. Yep, that's kind of what I thought I was going to see. So this free spool release, if you did not take that handle off, you would pull this whole section up here. And if you pulled that whole section up, well, you're going to have to reseat the screw. So let's spring. Let's just show you how that works. There's a spring that goes into this little hole here, an elevated copper tube. It kind of goes up through a hole in this side here. That's going to move this yoke up and down. It's going to retract it for free spool, and then it's going to reset it on the way back. This looks to be some kind of trip lever. I'm not so sure about that. You know what I don't see? Well, unless they're hiding them somewhere again, there's no ball bearings on the shaft here. There may be one underneath. We'll see. We're going to take the rest of this off. Here's your +1. That would be your anti-reverse clutch. There's 1 there, so we have 1 on each side and an anti-reverse clutch. 1 and 1 and 1 does not make 9. So kind of curious about that. Of course, I'd like to say that you could compare that to a schematic. Well, not so sure. All right, we took the C-clip off of that gear shaft. That enables you to remove the whole stack. And no ball bearing there. We have a typical bridge post with a little shim on the bottom of it. Here's our yoke and pinion gear and 2 springs. I like to move those springs out of the way as soon as I can. And here's a better look at what's going on with that free spool lever. So when you turn these teeth, it's going to pick these ramps right here. That's going to push up the back of this where you have the slopes. Here's your slopes. And that's going to pull your gear away from and off of the spool. and that will disengage the spool, allow the spool to turn freely, hence free spool. All right, we're going to check the gear here. Nope, don't see any burrings on this gear either. That was a joke. We're going to put a little bit of grease on here. We're going to grab our collar. Again, this ramp structure is the back end, and the toothed end of the gear where you have the slots faces forward. Now you don't need to put any greases on this. This is a petroleum-based product. If you want, I'd put a drop of oil in there, but don't grease that up. It'll only clog it up, and that won't be very helpful. All right, I'm going to nest those two screws here, springs here, just because I don't want to lose them. Let's take a look at what we have now inside. That's the collar for the anti-reverse. This is your shaft. Now this should be a trip lever for the arm that comes down here, but this one wasn't tripping. I'm not quite sure if something's amiss there or if it's just plain not going to trip. We'll find out when we do a final test. All right, so you have the trip lever. You have a metal washer that goes on top of the click ratchet. And we're going to put that back onto the post there. Next up, there was a larger washer, which is hiding a plastic drag washer. You don't do anything with plastic drag washers. They're self-lubricating, as are the other piece, and we have one here. And those may be carbon tex, I'm not sure. I'm just going to take a look. Yeah, I don't know. This is a hard plastic. It doesn't appear to be anything else. We're going to flip it over. All right, check the teeth on the main gear. Make sure that that's okay. And again, this is a generic reel, so you'd be doing this on pretty much every bait caster. This one is skinny down. You have a plastic set of components here. You have the plastic cogs that form the free spool mechanism. You have that plastic yoke. And my guess is that this would not be a very expensive reel, but that's what you get in an inexpensive reel. I don't know where the 9 bearings are. I don't mean to harp on that. Just, I think this is fool me once kind of a thing. All right. If we can, I think we want to take this and just move this lever because I want to pull that arm in. Okay, we're past pulling that at this point, but I did want to reset it so that when I go to mount that case, this arm is not hanging out here, which is what it was doing. So let's, we've oiled the bearing here. If we haven't, we'll just do another squirt again. One bearing on each side. No bearings under the post, no bearings on the post. I think we've been misled here. All right, let's go put the case back on. Line up all the pieces. Make sure you do not trap the springs when you go put this on. I'm going to grab a Phillips head screwdriver. We'll put the one case screw on. So overall, I don't mean to be negative about this reel. I just, I'm kind of just having a little fun with it because it tells me there's 9 ball bearings. So I have to assume there's probably, well, we found 2. So I guess there's 7 of them in the handle somewhere. Just, I think it's something that needs to be reconciled here. Of course, I can't recommend a reel where it just looks like it's out and out false. So we'll just leave it at that. I don't believe Scott paid a lot of money for this. If you did, Scott, go back to whence you came and let those folks know that you'd like a refund because there's not 9 ball bearings in this thing. All right, we're just going to rotate this around a little bit now. Find a balance, which is what I just did here. I had to do it upside down because you can't rotate that when it's in the middle of the side plate like that. Find the balance. Let's get the... So if anybody happened to notice those 9 ball bearings somewhere in this reel that I didn't, please let me know. Just curious. Those who watch the channel know I have a pretty healthy curiosity. Sometimes I'll take reels apart just to find out why they failed. And by the way, if you have a reel that's failing and you can't figure it out, or you're curious as to why it's failing, leave a note in the comment section. I'll see if I can help you. I got one here that I just can't seem to solve for anything. Tom sent it in. It's a Penn International. Doesn't free spool. And regardless of all of the things that I've tried to do, well, it's still not free spooling. All right, that is on. Next up then is a little tension spring that goes under. And the handle goes on. And remember that little C-clip that we had. Don't forget it. You can't do much without it. I'm not sure this is the C-clip that goes with this reel, but this is the C-clip that was on this reel. Yeah, it seems like it goes with it. If you don't have the hand strength, or if your fingers are too big, or whatever, grab a little pliers, pull it in from the top. Then this is the one that gives us a little bit of trouble on the front end. So we've learned a couple of things about generic reels that can be applied to all reels. Take pictures, go slow, anticipate that you may have something come up that might just be a problem, and be patient, have a sense of humor, and most of the time it will work out for you. All right, we just put the tie down on there. In this case, we also have a missing side plate screw. Again, you can run it without it, but I don't know where you would get one. I don't even know the name of this reel. That little badge fell off, and that's probably a good indication of the quality that that manufacturer extended to it, since, well, didn't even leave his name on there, right? He or she, let's be right about this. All right, a little bit of grease onto the stem, or the shaft. I like to set these with the free spool off, so we're going to pull that in. Curious to see if that trip lever actually works. It wasn't working the first time when I tested it. That doesn't mean it won't work. No, there's no trip lever there. You have to manually reset that trip lever, which to me doesn't make sense because the setup is there for that, so something is not reaching it. And if you need to replace a part, well, that part won't be there, I'm sure. Throw that forward, give it a spin. This is working. I want to spin that over to the side. Just take one more piece. This service is generic to all reels. You want to take that pawl. This looks pretty clean all around. Pull that pawl if you can. If you tap it, you can vibrate it down a little bit so that you can grab it. Oh, look at that. Wow. So this is why I tell you pull the pawls. This has got a tremendous amount of old grease on there. You can just see how that will clog the tracks and foul the operation of the worm and the level line guide. All right, put that cleaned up. Let's just go ahead and put that back in. You put that back in, you can put a drop of oil on there. Please use the fishing reel oils and greases. And we'll just put the cap back on, we'll give it one more twirl. And we'll call this a successful service of what claims to be a 9-ball bearing reel, where we only found, well, usually we only saw the 2, one on each end. Unless they've put a whole bunch of these in the handle. So there you go. There's your turn. We want to tighten down our drag to make sure that those are holding. There's no reason it shouldn't hold. Then you want to back your drag off. You don't want to keep pressure on your drag when the reel is not being used. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed it. I kind of enjoyed working on it. I made a little fun of it there, but Orient Homa 9+1 ball bearings. Well, okay. So, to all of our first responders and essential personnel, thank you for everything it is that you've been doing to keep us safe during the pandemic. To everybody, please stay safe, stay well, and stay watching. And if you get a chance, try and find the other 6 ball bearings. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.